What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another custom Black Series video. Today we're going to be putting together this Commander Gray and Captain Howzer. So I started off with the regular Phase 2 2023 bodies. I think these are from the 2-packs with the B1 battle droids, but I didn't really want to repaint all of the white here, so I started off by hitting these guys with a couple coats of this matte sealer, just so I'd have a good base for the paint to stick to. We're going to go ahead and heat these guys up with a hairdryer and pull them apart as far as we can. I'm using a hairdryer here since I used the matte coat already. I didn't want to ruin that matte coat with some boiling water, but we're also going to be using some 3D printed parts. These helmets are from Skyloo 3D over on Instagram, and these pauldrons I got on Colts 3D. I'll have to find a link for those, but I think I got these for free. These ones I ordered on eBay. I can't remember the seller, but if I find him, I'll link him in the description as well. But these are printed with some flexible resin. I wanted to try these out before I bought a bottle of this flexible resin, and these turned out really well. I really like how much they actually move and they don't crack or anything. So I'm really excited about this new resin that people have been using. So I ordered a bottle and I'm gonna use this on some future customs. So we're gonna start off by priming all of the pauldrons and like the belt and the helmets with this gray primer. Since they're 3D printed, I like to use this primer because it fills in those tiny gaps you might get from 3D prints, and it helps give a good base for all that paint to stick to. I'm gonna try to use this cold white from Vallejo to see if I can match the Hasbro white as much as possible. I know it's not gonna be a perfect match, but the pauldron separating the colors should help out with the helmet and the body not matching perfectly. So for Howzer, I'm gonna be using this blue color, and I made sure to mask everything off just so I could hopefully get some clean lines on here, but as you can see, it didn't work out perfectly. So luckily, whenever you paint straight on the body like this though, you can just go back with an X-Acto knife after the paint's dried, and you can scratch away some of that paint that might not be perfectly straight. And it also helps to do some weathering around here too, so it looks like it all matches up pretty well. But a sharp X-Acto knife can help clean up any paint lines that you might have, as long as you didn't paint the body white. If you painted the body white, you're gonna scratch off all the paint. But here's everything scratched up. I went and added some scratches throughout all the painted parts to give me some battle damage, I guess. Some chips in the paint and then some just some weathering easy with the X-Acto knife before I actually have to paint anything on. And for Gray, I had to do a lot of extra masking here because his knee pads are painted, and then his forearms have these weird kind of intricate designs on them, and so does his biceps. So I tried to mask off as best as I could so I could have a good template for those designs. But I ordered some of this really thin masking tape off of Amazon. I've tried a few different types before, and they're not great. Usually they don't stick very well to this plastic, and so I decided I really probably should hand paint all of these just so I can hopefully get cleaner lines. I tried out this leafy green from Army Painter, and this was way too bright. I really should have added maybe a little bit of black to this, because once I painted this on, I noticed it kind of did not look right at all. I guess Gray in the animated series has more of like a kind of somewhere between this and a forest green, like a shade or two darker than this. So adding a drop or two of black paint would have helped me out a lot here, but I'll fix that later with weathering. But the shoulder pads and the belt I was able to airbrush, but the rest of this is hand painted on, and I'm glad that I did light enough coats that there's not too big of a difference between the airbrushed parts and the hand painted parts, because sometimes whenever you switch between the two, it's pretty noticeable. But here's the pauldron all painted up too. It's pretty easy just airbrushing that green on there, and I came back with some black paint and just touched up where I needed to and filled up the rest of that. But just like Howzer, I'm gonna go through with my X-Acto knife and add some scratches through here. These also help too whenever you do a black wash or something. They help pick up some of that black paint, so it'll set in there, so it helps everything look a little bit more natural. But I'm just hitting all the sharp edges here, or the corners and stuff like that, where paint would naturally chip off if you were actually wearing armor all day. I have these cheap like sponges I got from Walmart, and I usually just tear a piece, like a corner piece off one of these sponges, and I tip it in a little bit of paint, just barely any paint on the tip of it. I just want very little on there, and I'll go around and kind of sponge this onto areas to add some more chipping effects. So I do this with the white first, and it looks like the paint has chipped away in some spots, or maybe there's some battle damage on there. But this is an easy way to get some weathering without having to actually use a paintbrush to try to get all these little tiny dots everywhere. But you can go a little heavy-handed in some spots, and some spots you can go lighter. And if you get too much on there though, it's pretty easy to just take your finger and wipe away a little bit, and it'll add to the whole weathering effect. It's just something to play around with for a little bit to see whatever you want to get on there. Like this elbow here, I hit it a little bit too hard, so I just wiped it with my finger, and it looks kind of like I meant to do that. So if you put too much on there, don't worry about it. You can just wipe it away, or if you need to add more paint, you can later. Then I like to take a little bit of black paint and dry brush that on there. So you want barely any paint on your paintbrush, and then just dry brush the corners or the edges of the armor, maybe doing a little dabs of paint every once in a while to add some extra weathering throughout the armor and stuff like that. This is another thing, weathering can be tricky because if you put too much, it's gonna look weird, and if you do too little, it's not gonna look like you did anything. So it's something you just gotta play around with and test out. But it's always way easier to add more weathering rather than try to take away weathering. So make sure to just take your time with it and do little bits at a time and try to get somewhere where you like. So at this point, the green was still sticking out pretty hard. I didn't like how bright it was, so I decided I probably needed to give this guy a full dark wash to try to bring down that color a little bit and add a little bit extra damage on him. So I'm using this wash by Vallejo, and you just paint this on there and then leave it for a few minutes or 30 seconds to a minute, and then you can wipe it away with a paper towel. And then if you're like me and you left it on there too long and it looks pretty bad, you can use some 70% rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip to kind of clean up a little bit more. I didn't get very much footage of that. I did struggle with it for a little while, but I went through a bunch of Q-tips and a bunch of that rubbing alcohol, and I got him pretty cleaned up, as you can see here. But here's the flexible pauldron. The one for Howzer is flexible. The one for gray I printed, and it's not flexible. They don't look that different in quality, so the flexible resin is definitely something I'll be trying to use in the future for these pauldrons. But since I wiped away most of my weathering with that rubbing alcohol, I'm going back through and trying to dab on some black every few spots with this sponge again. But here they are after I painted the bodies all up. You can see I did the same weathering on Howzer, except for Howzer didn't get a wash. I skipped the wash on Howzer, so all of that's just hand painting all of that weathering onto there. But here's the helmets. I don't know why I painted these up first, because I ended up having to pretty much repaint these again after I got the details on there. But here's all the details I did add for the first go around on here. And these helmets are definitely kind of painful to try to paint perfectly, especially with all that white. But I think they turned out pretty well. And now I just got to paint on all of their specific details onto there. So for Howzer, it's pretty simple. It's just kind of two of these turquoise areas. So I just masked off. I tried to get an even line across the top. But for gray, it was definitely more work to get this perfect. So I just tried to follow some reference images as best as possible and lay down some masking tape so I can hopefully have cleaner lines. These lines on the side of the helmet, though, I had to kind of just wing it and try to look at some reference pictures and guess where they were at. But I think I did pretty okay with that. Just trying to see from pictures where they need to go. After that, I did pretty much the same weathering as I did to the body. I just wanted everything to match up pretty well, so just dabbed on some of this white with the sponge all over the painted parts. Dry brushing the edges again, all over the helmet. I'm really weathering this guy up. In the show, he's super damaged, so I wanted him to look pretty nasty on the shelf as well. Especially since he's going to my Bad Batch area. I want him to match the show as much as possible. So we did a lot of weathering to the body and the head here. But after that, I bought these WaterSlide decals off of Etsy. I'll try to find the link for those. But these are not super fun to try to put on, but it's way easier than actually hand painting these on. So what I do is I use this Mark Fit decal solution. I just paint a little bit of that on there. Make sure to clear coat the helmet before you do this too. I don't know if the Mark Fit reacts poorly to paint or whatever, but if you clear coat it before this, it sticks pretty well. So I dip the decal in some water for about 30 seconds to a minute, and then I can place that on the helmet and lose camera focus. But once that's placed on the helmet, I can slowly kind of push away the decal from the backing, and then just kind of line it up where I want it to be at. Make sure to keep everything pretty wet while you're doing this with the decal solution and water, and you can line this up where you want it. And then I like to take a damp Q-tip and just try to lightly roll out the water from underneath the decal. This did take a bunch of attempts. This one you can see the decal kind of chipped on the edges while I was trying to put it on, so I didn't end up keeping this one, but this was the only video I got of me trying this since it took me so long. But once you do a few of these, you get the hang of it. They're just kind of tricky and very, very touchy, but I'll put the link where I got these decals at in the description. All right, after that, we're gonna add some gloss to the visor. I'm gonna be using some UV resin, some clear UV resin, just because the gloss paint doesn't usually stick out as much, but this UV resin makes it look like an actual visor is in the helmet, versus just the gloss doesn't really pop that much. But you can see I already did the UV resin to gray, and you can see what a difference that makes to the overall visor and the whole look of the helmet. Also, for those decals, make sure you clear coat after you get done putting them on there. Let them dry overnight and then clear coat again, because if you don't, they're pretty easy to just accidentally wipe off if you're touching the helmet too much. But I'm gonna use a paintbrush to apply this UV resin. You can also use a toothpick. I've been using toothpicks more often now because I'm scared to ruin these paintbrushes. But if you keep some like 90% rubbing alcohol, you can wash your paintbrushes off after using it, and you won't ruin them. But it's sometimes a little bit easier to use a toothpick. This one's just such a kind of tight spot to paint this on that I decided to use my thin paintbrush. After you get that a good thick coat put over the visor of that, you can blast it with one of these UV lamps. I got this on Amazon a while back. This thing does eat batteries. I don't know why this one eats batteries so fast, but I usually hold it on the eyes for about maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Sometimes I'll actually put it into my 3D printing curing booth, but you can definitely do it this way as well. It just takes a little bit longer. But here's the finished product. I was really happy with how these turned out, especially not having to paint all of the white. That's the biggest annoying thing with these clone troopers, is repainting all the white. So definitely having those pauldrons to separate it makes the helmets not really stand out as much. But here he is with the regular phase 2. I really want to work on more clones. I think I'm gonna work on some ARC troopers next. I've been ordering just clones whenever I see them go up, and it's really fun to work on these guys, and it's definitely exciting getting more of these guys on the shelf, since Hasbro takes its sweet time to make different variations of these. But thanks for watching. If you want to see more clones, let me know what commanders you want to see, or captains, or who you want to see me make next. And thanks for watching again, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.